Think back. It's 2020 and a national lockdown has just been announced. Schools are closing, businesses are shutting their doors, busy streets are now empty. The world as we know it is changing. But who needs to pick up the pieces? Who needs to pay for the damage that COVID-19 has done? I bet I can guess 95% of your answers. The government, right? During the COVID-19 pandemic, governments worldwide spent enormous amounts of money supporting businesses, hospitals, vaccination programs, with the estimated total cost being over $12 trillion US. But here's the catch. Governments don't just have unlimited supplies of money. And the pandemic as huge as COVID meant that borrowing was limited. Eventually, much of this cost fell to the taxpayer. When pandemics strike, the burden spreads everywhere, just as the disease does. It doesn't matter who's affected, who benefits, or who contributed most. So let me rephrase my first question. Not who should pay for pandemics, but when should we pay for pandemics? Imagine this. There are two nations. Nation 1 invests in warning systems, stockpiles emergency resources, and has a fund ready for rapid response system. While Nation 2 decides it will deal with the consequences once they've happened. When the pandemic occurs, which do you think would be more prepared? Which would experience less devastation? Which would recover faster? City 1 may spend millions, but inevitably, City 2 will spend billions. And it won't just pay in money, but in lives, lost jobs, and years of recovery. The lesson is simple. Preparedness may seem expensive until you compare it with the price of being unprepared. It's not just saving, it's insurance against a much larger future cost. The World Health Organization has identified an annual investment need of over $31.1 billion US for an effective pandemic preparedness and response system. Currently, the UK only invests around $1 billion on health protection measures. Pandemics aren't just biological events, they're economic earthquakes, and their costs are inescapable. We just need to decide when we're going to pay for them. We need to start paying before hospitals get overwhelmed, before emergency government will in, before the virus spreads. We need to start now. Experts call this day zero financing, which is having funding readily available for the moment an outbreak occurs. Every little delay leads to more infections, more death, and more devastation. One way governments could do this is through a sovereign wealth fund. These are national investment funds set up during strong economic periods to be used during periods of economic struggles, such as a pandemic. Countries such as Norway and China use sovereign wealth funds in order to save and prepare for economic shocks. A pandemic preparedness fund could work in the same way, building savings before a crisis so governments can respond immediately the second an outbreak occurs. One of the biggest lessons COVID-19 taught us was that in a pandemic, everyone can be affected differently. Those on lower incomes often struggled harsher consequences as they were unable to work from home or lacked savings to comfortably fall back on. Additionally, many families faced additional struggles when schools closed. As a result, pandemics can widen already massive economic and social inequalities, raising the important question, how can we share the burden fairly? One possibility is risk-based contributions. Those connected to higher risk activities contribute more. For example, industries associated with increasing the risk of a pandemic pay higher towards a pandemic preparedness fund. Additionally, whilst many industries experienced massive loss during the pandemic, many firms actually profited. Major pharmaceutical companies made billions through vaccinations and treatments. Technology firms generated massive revenue as work, shopping, education, and basically all of life moved online. Of course, these sectors were extremely important during the pandemic, but surely, if some firms are significantly benefiting during this time of crisis, they should pay higher towards helping the recovery. And just as pandemics cross borders, so must funding. As low-income countries struggle to support themselves, no country can be fully protected against a pandemic. Pandemics are known as a public bad, meaning they affect everyone. Shared responsibility and international support are essential to global protection because pandemic preparedness is not just a national issue, it's a global one. Another important issue is that pandemic preparedness is not often seen as a political priority. The benefits of preparedness can seem invisible because the problem seems so far away. Yet, these investments can save enormous amounts of money and thousands of lives. So, I'd like to return to my original question. Who should pay for pandemics? Truthfully, we all do, whether it be through higher taxes, higher prices, lost income, disrupted education, or economic instability. The costs eventually reach all of us. The real question is when. Pandemic risks aren't hypothetical, they're real. Forecasting consultancy Airfinity has estimated a 28% chance of a COVID-like pandemic happening again by 2033. Do we pay a small price today through preparation, or a much larger price tomorrow? Because every pound that is saved is a pound that can save lives, protect families, and prevent crisis. So when the next pandemic occurs, don't ask who should pay for it. Let's hope that we've already paid enough to be prepared. Thank you.